Well, my friends, this has been very exciting. We're getting close to the end of the book. There's only, well, this much left. But probably 2 more sessions together. Chapter 47, No Choice. Despereaux stood trembling on the steps. The thread was most definitely gone. He could not hear it. He could not see it. He should have tied it to himself when he had the chance, but now it was too late. Despereaux's dire situation suddenly became quite clear to him. He was a 2-ounce mouse, alone in a dark, twisting dungeon full of rats. He had nothing but a sewing needle with which to defend himself. He had to find a princess, and he had to save her once he found her.
"It's impossible,"
he said to the darkness.
"I can't do it."
He stood very still.
"I'll go back,"
he said, but he didn't move.
"I have to go back."
He took a step backward.
"But I can't go back. I don't have a choice. I have no choice."
He took 1 step forward, then another.
"No choice."
His heart beat out to him as he went down the stairs.
"No choice. No choice. No choice."
At the bottom of the stairs, the rat Botticelli sat waiting, and when Despereaux stepped from the last stair onto the dungeon floor, Botticelli called out to him as if he were a long-lost friend.
"Ah," said Botticelli, "there you are. Exactly. I have been waiting for you."
Despereaux saw the dark shape of a rat, that thing that he had feared and dreaded for so long, finally step out from the gloom and come to greet him.
"Welcome, welcome,"
said Botticelli. Despereaux put his paw on the needle.
"Ah," said Botticelli, "you are armed. How charming."
He put his paws up in the air.
"I surrender. Oh, certainly, exactly. I surrender." "I,"
said Despereaux.
"Yes," said Botticelli, "you."
And he took the locket from around his neck, and he began to swing it back and forth.
"Please, go on." I don't want to hurt you," said Despereaux. "I just need to get by you. I am on a quest."
"Really?" said Botticelli. "How extraordinary! A mouse on a quest." Back and forth went the locket.
"A quest for what?" "A quest to save the princess."
"The princess," said Botticelli. "The princess. Oh, the princess. Everything seems to be about the princess these days. The king's men were down here searching for her, you know, but they didn't find her. That goes without saying. Now a mouse has arrived, and he is on a quest to save a princess."
"Yes,"
said Despereaux, and he took a step to the left of Botticelli. "How inspiring," said Botticelli. He lazily took a step to his right, blocking Despereaux's way. "Why the hurry, little friend?"
"Because,"
said Despereaux,
"I have to."
Yes, you have to save the princess, exactly. But before you save her, you must find her, correct?"
"Yes,"
said Despereaux. "What if," said Botticelli, "what if I told you that I know exactly where the princess is? What if I told you I could take you right directly to her?" Said Despereaux. His voice shook. His paw on the needle trembled.
"Why would you do that?"
"Why would I do that? Why would I help you? Why, to be of service, to do my part for humanity, to aid in the saving of a princess."
"But you are
A rat," supplied Botticelli. "Oh, yes, I am a rat, and I see by your trembling that the greatly exaggerated rumors of our evil nature have reached your oversized ears."
"Yes,"
said Despereaux. "If," said Botticelli, swinging the locket back and forth, "if you allow me to be of assistance, you will be doing me a tremendous favor. Not only can I do a good deed for you and for the princess, but for my actions will help to dispel this terrible myth of evil that seems to surround rats everywhere. Will you let me assist you? Will you let me assist myself and be kind?" Reader, was it a trick? Of course it was. Botticelli did not want to be of service. Far from it. You know what Botticelli wanted. He wanted others to suffer. Specifically, he wanted this small mouse to suffer. How best to do that? Why, take him right directly to what he wanted, the princess. Let him see what his heart desired, and then, and only then, faced with what he loved, would Despereaux die. And at the end of it all, how tasty the mouse would be, seasoned with hope and tears and flour and oil and thwarted love.
My name, little friend, is Botticelli Ramoroso, and you may trust me. You must trust me. Will you tell me your name?
Despereaux. Despereaux, Tilling.
Despereaux, Tilling, take your paw from your weapon. Come with me.
Despereaux stared at him.
Come, come, said Botticelli. Let go of your needle. Take hold of my tail. I will lead you to your princess. I promise.
What, reader, in your experience, is the promise of a rat worth? That's right. 0. Zip. Nada. Goose eggs. But I must ask you this question too. What else was there for Despereaux to hold on to? You are right again. Nothing. And so the mouse reached out and he took hold of the rat's tail. Chapter 48, On the Tail of a Rat. Have you ever had hold of the tail of a rat? At best, it is an unpleasant sensation, scaly and cold, similar to holding on to a small, narrow snake. At worst, when you are dependent upon a rat for your survival, and when part of you is certain that you are being led nowhere except to your death, it is a hideous sensation indeed to have nothing but a rat's tail to cling on to. Nonetheless, Despereaux held on to Botticelli Ramoroso, and the rat led him deeper and deeper into the dungeon. Despereaux's eyes had, by this point, adjusted quite well to the darkness, though it would have been better if they had not, for the things he saw made him shiver and shake. What did he see? He saw that the floor of the dungeon was littered with tufts of fur, knots of red thread, and the skeletons of mice. Everywhere there were tiny white bones glowing in the darkness, and he saw, in the dungeon tunnels through which Botticelli led him, the bones of human beings, too. Grinning skulls, delicate finger bones rising up out of the darkness and pointing towards some truth best left unspoken. Despereaux closed his eyes. But it didn't help. He saw, as if his eyes were still open wide, the bones, the tufts of hair, the knots of thread, the despair. Exactly, Botticelli laughed as he negotiated the twists and turns. Oh, yes, exactly. If what was in front of Despereaux was too horrible to contemplate, what followed behind him was, perhaps, even worse. Rats. A happy, hungry, vengeful parade of rats, their noses up in the air, sniffing. Sniffing.
Mouse!
Sang out one rat joyfully.
Oh, yes, yes, mouse, agreed another, but something else, too.
Soup, called out another rat. Yes, soup, the others agreed.
Blood,
sang a rat. Blood, they all agreed. And then together they sang, Here, mousey, 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 here, little mousey. Botticelli called out to the other rats.
Mine, he said. This little treasure is all mine, gentlemen and ladies. Please, I beg you, and do not infringe on my discovery.
Mr. Ramoroso,
said Despereaux. He turned and looked behind him and saw the rats, their red eyes and their smiling mouths. He closed his eyes again. He kept them closed.
Mr. Ramoroso,
he called.
Yes, said Botticelli.
Mr. Ramoroso,
said Despereaux, and he was crying now. He couldn't help it.
Please, the princess.
Tears, shouted the rat. We smell tears, mousey, we do.
Please, shouted Despereaux.
Little friend, said Botticelli. "Little Despereaux Tilling, I promised you, and I will keep that promise." The rat stopped. "Look ahead of you," he said. "What do you see?" Despereaux opened his eyes.
Light,
he said. "Exactly," said Botticelli. "Light." Chapter 49. What do you want, Miggery Sow? Again, reader, we must go backward before we can go forward. We must consider for a moment what had occurred with the rat and the serving girl and the princess down in the dungeon before Despereaux made his way to them. What happened was this. Roscuro led the Pea and Mig deep into the dungeon to a hidden chamber, and there he directed Mig to put the princess in chains.
"Gore," said Mig. "She's going to have a hard time learning her lessons if she's all chained up like."
"Do as I say," said Roscuro.
"Maybe," said Mig, "before I lock her up, her and me could switch outfits so we could start in already, and her being me and me being a princess."
"Oh, yes," said Roscuro. "Certainly. A wonderful idea, Miss Miggery. Princess, take off your crown and give it to the serving girl."
The Pea sighed and took off her crown and handed it to Mig, and Mig put it on, and it slid immediately right down on her small head and came to rest, quite painfully, on her poor abused ears. "It's a biggish thing," she said, "and painful like."
"Well, well," said Roscuro.
"How do I look?" Mig asked, smiling at him.
"Ridiculous," he said. "Laughable."
Mig stood blinking back tears. "You mean I don't look like a princess?" she said to the rat.
"I mean," said Roscuro, "you will never look like a princess, no matter how big a crown you put on your tiny head. You look exactly like the fool you are and always will be. Now, make yourself useful and chain the princess up. Dress-up time is over."
Mig sniffed and wiped at her eyes, and then bent to look at the pile of chains and locks on the floor.
"And now, princess," he said, "I'm afraid that the time for your truth has arrived. I will now tell you what your future holds. As you consign me to darkness, so I consign you, too, to a life spent in this prison."
Mig looked up.
ain't she going upstairs to be a servant maid?
"No," said Roscuro.
Ain't I going to be a princess then?
"No," said Roscuro.
But I want to be a princess.
"No one," said Roscuro, "cares what you want."
As you know, reader, Miggery Sow had heard this sentiment expressed many times in her short life. But now, in the dungeon, it hit her full force. The rat was right. No one cared what she wanted. No one had ever cared. And perhaps worst of all, no one would ever care.
I want,
cried Mig. Shh, said the princess.
"Shut up," said the rat.
I want,
Mig sobbed.
I want.
What do you want, Mig? Said the princess softly.
Eh?
Shouted Mig.
What do you want, Miggery Sow?
The princess shouted.
"Don't ask her that," said Roscuro. "Shut up, shut up."
But it was too late. The words had been said. The question, at last, had been asked. The world stopped spinning and all of creation held its breath, waiting to hear what it was that Miggery Sow wanted.
I want,
said Mig.
Yes,
shouted the Pea.
I want my ma,
cried Mig into the silent waiting world.
I want my ma.
Oh, said the princess, and she held out her hand to Mig. Mig took hold of it. I want my mother, too, said the princess softly, and she squeezed Mig's hand.
"Stop it," said Roscuro. "Chain her up, chain her up."
"Gore," said Mig. "I ain't gonna do it. You can't make me do it. I got the knife, don't I?" And she took the knife and held it up. Here is a picture of the princess asking Miggery Sow what does she want.
"If you have any sense at all," said Roscuro, "and I heartily doubt that you do, you will not use that instrument on me. Without me, you will never find your way out of the dungeon, and you will starve to death here, or worse."
"Gore," said Mig. "Then lead us out now, or I will chop you into little rat bits."
"No," said Roscuro. "The princess shall stay here in the darkness, and you, Mig, will stay with her."
"But I want to go upstairs," said Mig.
I'm afraid we're stuck here, Mig, shouted the princess, unless the rat has a change of hearts and decides to lead us out.
There will be no change of heart, said Roscuro. None.
Gore, said Mig. She lowered the knife. And so the rat and the princess and the servant girl sat together in the dungeon as, outside the castle, the sun rose and moved through the sky and sank to the earth again, and night fell. And they sat together until the candle had burned out and another one had to be lit. They sat together in the dungeon. They sat and sat. And reader, truthfully, they might be sitting there still if a mouse had not